Hey, what's up? Welcome back. Today we're going to cover chapter 2 from my from 0 to something getting started with Python book. You can find this on Amazon for $15. Link is in the description below. But chapter 2 is just simply getting things set up so we can start programming. So we're going to talk a little bit about file structure, setting up files in a way that's easy to say organized when you start developing, and then we're going to get covered with some basic Python language. So when you get started with writing code and developing, you want to make sure that your files and folders stay organized. So my recommendation is that you start a folder on your desktop or documents or wherever you keep your typical files and create a new folder. We're going to name this just simply dev, or you can lengthen it to development. I prefer shorter names because it's easier to type in the terminal and get to where I need to be. So your folder structure should be pretty well organized, where you have your development folder that holds everything. And then in that, you have kind of different folders that hold different projects. And so, for instance, you might have a new folder in here that's called your temp convert project. You might have a new folder in here called calculator for calculator project. You might have another one for a website. Let's do color picker. You want to organize things in a way where it's easy to know where things are at, what things are. You know, if you look in your calculator, you'll have all the files for your calculator project in there. And it just kind of helps keep things organized. So we're going to get rid of those because I'm actually not making any of those projects. And we're going to create a new folder just called text testing. This is just going to be a simple folder to hold some of our small scripts that we're just kind of playing around with. In our terminal or console, if you're on a Mac, you're going to do a cd. I'm on desktop, dev, and testing, okay? Now, if you're on a Windows, that might look a little different. Also, if you're in an IDE that has a built-in text or a built-in terminal, you won't need to do this process. If you're using Visual Studio Code, WingWare, PyCharm, those have built-in terminals, so you can just simply hit the big play button instead of running things in terminal. But I'm going to show you how to do things in terminal anyways, because I find it's helpful for you to know. One thing to note as well is if we have a folder name with multiple words in it, we want to use underscores in between the words. And so if I rename this to testing Python, instead of using a white space, we want to use an underscore. Because terminal requires an underscore. It doesn't recognize, when you have a white space, like a normal space in there, terminal will see that as two separate things and won't know that to look for a folder. You can fix that by using quotes. But when you start developing, you really want to get used to replacing any of your white spaces with underscores. And that includes Python file names, that includes folder names, and that includes variables, which we'll get into a little bit later. So I'm going to just rename this as testing because we're going to keep it simple. And we're going to create a new file. We're going to save this under, let's see, save as. We're going to go to desktop, dev, testing. And we're going to name this as getting started with an underscore .py. Now, .py tells the computer that this is a Python file. It's a file that includes a Python language and to compile it as a Python language. And so we're going to name that as getting started.py and we're going to save it. And we're just going to start writing some basic simple code. We're just going to run a print statement, which tells the computer, hey, return this statement, this string, whatever this is, back to the user. So we're going to print hello world, because this is the typical cliche. You start programming and you're going to write hello world to get started. We're going to save that and go to terminal, and we're going to do a Python 3. We're going to type in our file name, so getting started.py, and we can see that it prints out to the user hello world. So whatever you type in these parentheses will be printed out here. Now, a couple things to note. Python is case sensitive. So if I type a capital P here and save this, it should not work. You'll see we have a big error, print is not defined, okay? So be sure that you use the proper case. In most cases with Python, if you're calling functions and stuff, it'll be a lower case. Now, the parentheses are kind of like a container. They hold information inside of it, and whatever is inside of the parentheses is what's getting relayed to this function. And the print function is just a function that types it to the terminal. And so anything I include in here, if I type in 541 for some reason, and I save that and I go to terminal, if I run the same command, it'll print the same whatever's in those parentheses out. So that's just a super simple basics. I wanted to make sure that we have our folder structure set up, everything is processed correctly, and that we're ready to get started. In the next video, we're going to cover Python variables, and we're going to get started actually writing code and understanding the Python language. I'll see you next time. If you like this video, like and subscribe below. And if you're interested in following along in it with a book format, check out the book From Zero to Something, Getting Started with Python. It is on Amazon. Link is below in the description.